Welcome on in here. First pitch. The NBA Finals are done. Hockey may be winding down, but it is a full slate of MLB action coming your way all summer long. How do we make money betting it, though? That's what we'll answer here over the next 45 to an hour. I'm Dan Alexander. Joining me in the saddle, 2 R's, 1L, Steve Merril with me of WagerTalk.com, and Eric Pauly of the Gold Sheet, breaking down some evening baseball here for a Tuesday. We'll be talking, of course, the Phillies, as we customarily do here, Baltimore and the Yankees in a true big game breakdown. We got best bets coming your way here, and we'll let you know which games that will be as you're hanging out here with us. And shout out to the live chat. Ask your questions all along the way, and let's cash together. But Steve, last night, you weren't on the show with us yesterday, but I kept telling people, hey, I don't know about my Phillies. Seems like they're going into one of those patented slumps that they love so much. And I guess all they needed, Steve, was being home in their own beds, because returning to form as they have at Citizens Bank Park, just raking. 2 for Schwarber, 9-2 final. Big win back at the ballpark. You see anything different here for game 2, or do those Phils just continue to roll at home? What say you, man?
Yeah, look, I've been a big proponent about the Phillies are going to regress, right? We've talked about it for a couple of weeks, and part of the logic was, first of all, nobody's going to win 70% of their games during the season. And the odds makers were telling you the same thing. I think their adjusted season win total a few weeks ago was like maybe 102 or something, whereas if they kept at the pace they were on, it would have been like 110, 112 total wins. So you knew they're going to cool off. I thought the trip to London and then coming back and having to go straight to Fenway and Baltimore, Boston and Baltimore, was maybe going to be what did it. And it did somewhat do it. After winning that first game back against Boston, they lost 4 of their next 5. But we saw some light in that Baltimore game on Sunday. They only scored 3 runs, but they left 12 guys on base. They had 10 hits. And one of the reasons I thought they were cooling off is their offensive momentum. Even when they were winning a couple weeks ago, they had 7 hits or less in most of those games. That's not the case now. And last night was a real breakout game. 9 runs, 18 hits. So I do like the momentum we see right now from the offense. And while I think San Diego is an underrated team this year, I've talked a lot about them as well with the nearly 5 runs a game, almost a 280 batting average on the road. They're not hitting the ball well right now. They've had 2 runs or less in 3 of their last 4 games, 7 hits or less in 3 of those 4. They've lost 4 straight. I am more comfortable backing the Phillies tonight than I was maybe a week ago. Still one of the best teams in baseball at a very short price. This is actually the free play on my page today at WagerTalk.com. So you can go there right now and get my pitcher projection ratings for both pitchers. And that's another reason I like the Phillies tonight, as I've got Nola and King's projected ERA, runs allowed, innings, and everything on my page for free right now. Steve Merril, WagerTalk.com.
Yeah, and I guess good news for the Padres is they get to see some right-handed pitching. Bad news for the Padres, it's going to be Aaron Nola. It's always kind of shaky at home, but he's been strong throughout his last few starts here. We're seeing a total basically painted across. There's like a rogue 9 out there, looking at 8.5 across the board. So if you think those Phillies could potentially be having that explosion again, maybe team total over, like people were begging me to take yesterday, it might be worth a look in that one. Hop below and let us know in the comments how you're looking to bet that one, or any other games that you might have slated on the board. We would love to answer any of the questions or chop up about some of the games that you have eyed on the cards. And as always, we love hearing your best bets while you're hanging out with us. An always best bet is make sure you're subscribed here to Wager Talk TV's YouTube channel. EP, big game breakdown is what we typically call these games that we start with. It's been a while, I feel, that we have gotten this type of a big game breakdown right out of the gate. Baltimore and the Yankees, this 3-game series has all kinds of intrigue, and you're looking at the top 2 records in the AL. So an early preview of what we might be seeing come playoff time. I'm really interested how you see this one breaking down. And, of course, whenever we have you with a CP, we like talking some Dinger Tuesday. With these bats, this might be the game to be eyeing some of that promo money, right?
Well, actually, the bigger game was that Padres-Phillies game. Now, Aaron Nola and Michael King, both good pitchers, but 2 of the things that they don't do well is they allow home runs. And the wind is blowing out at the bank today. So quick digression before, that's a game where I would actually be looking for Dinger Tuesday. But Yankees, Orioles. So now, as we know, last year the MLB has a new scheduling change where every team plays each other one time. You play less divisional games. And yes, it's only June. What is it, June 18th? But this is such a crucial game. And this whole series is going to be so crucial coming down to the wire for the AL East and potentially the number one seed in the entire American League, despite the fact that we're still in the middle of June. Now, this is a game that's just really interesting. So Albert Suarez has been going for Baltimore. He's been pitching pretty well, despite him not being a guy you'd expect to maintain it. Now, his FIP is pretty high, but his expected ERA is relatively low. So he's kind of a hard guy to put into a box. It's like, is he going to get absolutely demolished? There are some pitchers, like Reynaldo Lopez is a good example. It's like everyone's waiting for him to get shelled. It just hasn't happened yet. And maybe that tonight is tonight for Suarez, but we shall see. Other hand, Nestor Cortez, now he has been pitching relatively well again this season. Orioles bats not doing as well against left-handed pitching as we expected as they did last year. They absolutely destroyed left-handed pitching. But given just the odds on this matchup, I have to go with the Orioles at plus 120. Now, I know the Yankees have a better record. They're higher in the AL East and in the best record in baseball. But I don't know that these teams are really this big of a gap. Now, Nestor Cortez, yes, is a better starter than Albert Suarez, which does, dictate the full money line for the game. But it's not like Nestor Cortez is really that much more dominant. Like tomorrow we have Garrett Cole making his debut. I'm curious to see what those odds are going to be looking like. On this one, I definitely like the Baltimore Orioles plus 120. And some hitters that I'd look at in this one now, it's a game where I project also a little bit under the total. Now, it's got bet up to 9. I think it was an 8 open. So this is expecting some offense. But I look at Ryan Mountcastle for the Baltimore Orioles. And for the Yankees, you can't go wrong looking at Juan Soto or Aaron Judge. And I'm excited to see their rookie first baseman come up. We know Anthony Rizzo's out. His name is escaping me right this second, but they have a kid who's been hitting in AAA. Instead of, going and trying to use some platoon option at first, the Yankees are bringing up somebody from AAA to play first base. And Rizzo, as we've seen, has not been great. So I like the O's. I like the under. And this game is going to be important. This series is going to be important. It'll be worth tuning in every single night.
O's and the under. I like the breakdown there from my man EP. And yet this whole 3-game set is going to be must-watch stuff. Cortez Jr. and Suarez there on the mound. Good breakdowns on both of those guys from our man Eric Pauly. You want more breakdowns like that, you can check out the Gold Sheet Light that goes daily, get you some free information, and you can, of course, get the full Gold Sheet, get you winners around the clock here with MLB, and, of course, NFL and college football right around the corner. So don't be sleeping on the content you'll be getting from the Gold Sheet, wt.buzz/TGS. Get in now, get that all access, and you can ride through football season as well. More details over at the page there. The chat brought up, and speaking of the chat, shout out to you, Titan CT, Johnny Jumpman joining us right out of the gate. C. James, yes, we did take that Red Sox team total over yesterday. Appreciate that. Thank you for the winner. Have Cash, Jay Bumgardner, of course, while you're hanging out with us, folks, hit that like button. We would appreciate it. But JB points out, just Jason Bumgarden, something that Zeno brought up, and it's in this Cincinnati and Pittsburgh game. It seems like a good profitable spot, Steve, has just been, look at the lineup, see when Skeen starts, and then the following game, you fade Pittsburgh. Hey, maybe it's more anecdotal than anything, but when you cash 6 straight times, it starts becoming a trend with some credence, and you're kind of seeing it built in a little bit here as Lodolo, the lefty, against Falter, the lefty, and we got a road chalk price. So quite the different line than what we saw yesterday in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh getting that win, and thanks to the bullpen, actually, 3-1 after the first inning. Of course, keep Skeens in there a little bit longer, but the collapse that we had come to expect from this Pittsburgh team never quite came. So any positive momentum to bring into that, or do you think that Zeno's stat on fading them following Skeen starts is starting to have a little, if there is smoke, there is fire, Steve? What do you think?
Always love doing this show with Mark Zeno. Also love doing it with you, Dan. And one of the reasons I say that is because I was thinking the same thing. And I had not heard Zeno say that, actually, but that's something I'd seen myself. And I was very close to using the Reds today as my free play at the end of the show. Mm-hmm. But you read my mind. I kept it off, but that was going to be the angle I went with. And I think there is something to that. Skeens is a superstar. 6 innings, 1 run allowed last night. He's had a great start basically every time out. They're now 6-1 straight up when he pitches. They are a playoff team when he pitches. And I think it's natural to have a letdown after that. The only thing that kept me from going a little bit further with Cincinnati and using it as the best bet at the end of this show is the fact the Reds are not in good current form. They're just 2-5 their last 7. And they have scored 3 runs or less in each of those losses except one. Of course, 1 run in 2 of their last 3 losses, but one of those was against Skeens last night, so I don't read too much into that. So, yeah, I do like Cincinnati, and I think they're a road favorite for a reason here, and I do think the regression after having a young ace on the mound makes sense. I'd be careful with Pittsburgh tonight.
Well, what do you think about this one, EP? Anything stand out to you as far as player props are concerned? Because I'm kind of with Steve. I get the price. I understand the price. I just don't know if I want to lay this price with the Reds on the road here. What do you think about this game?
No, so I agree with what you're bringing up and what Steve mentioned. Like the Pittsburgh Pirates, their numbers offensively with Paul Skeens have been absolutely incredible. Of course, he's been incredible himself, but they're providing him a ton of run support. We know this Pirates team is not built to, hit the ball all that well. And Bailey Falter is just not good. Like Bailey Falter is actually probably one of my biggest fades from a starting pitcher. So I'm glad to see this line really breaking it down. I mean, I'll get into the numbers. He's not a ground ball pitcher. He lets up a ton of fly balls. He lets up a ton of contact. He's not a strikeout pitcher. His expected ERA is 4.93 runs a game. His ERA is a 4.66. He got a 4.53 FIP. So, add those things up equates to Billy Falter stinking, and he does worse against right-handed batters as you'd expect as a lefty, but he has those really big splits. And again, like this Pirates offense can't sustain that success they have, like when they do when Skeens is pitching. I mean, he's just getting that good turn of the luck. And now you have a Falter who is like significantly worse than Skeens going against this Reds team that we've seen put up some fights in some divisional games. So I think the price is warranted, and I would look to the Reds if anything. I would not bet the Pittsburgh Pirates today.
Yeah, it's hard to agree. I mean, it's hard to disagree there. And again, like you said, and like we mentioned with Zeno's trend that he pointed out, it's just been, hey, it's almost like you keep riding that streak. It's just with the recent form, as Steve said, with this Reds team. I think that's enough to keep me off either side. Hop below in the comments and let us know how you're looking to bet this one. Also, Leg Show Magazine, shout out to him joining us here in the chat. Appreciate it. Terrific name as well. Derry Hardaway, appreciate you. Anthony over on the YouTube Shorts feed was happy he cashed in and expects to cash in with the O's here tonight. Steve, I mean, just keeping on rolling. You can talk all you want about hot teams. 14 runs the Mets got across. Mets and Texas. And in the chat here, we have Leg Show Magazine pointing out the Mets are 6-0 since Grimace threw the first pitch. So that you talk about trends. That's important trends right there. But more so, Steve, since the players' meeting, I mean, this has been night and day Mets team. This was a game that we broke down yesterday. We were loving the Mets, Drew and I. We got plus money price on them. And you think that this explosive stretch that you've seen here out of the Mets is going to be cooling off anytime soon? Because if not, why don't we just keep backing them until the wheels fall off?
Yeah, nobody loves a good bottoming process more than Dan Alexander. But Dan, the key to a good bottoming process, as you know, is a catalyst. You got to have a catalyst. And I always say don't try to catch those falling knives, right? Unless we see something change. And the player meeting does make sense. You always say you can't fire the roster. That's why they fire their coaches. You see that a lot in hockey, basketball, and baseball, the long sports. And it does often serve as a spark. And that's why teams do it. But one thing I got wrong. I got one thing right, and that was that your Phillies would cool off after the London trip. But something I missed, I was just kind of neutral on the Mets because they'd already cooled off before the trip. I thought it wouldn't be a positive, but I think it actually was a positive because keep in mind, the NFL season's coming up, and people often ask me, how do you handicap off a bye week? I go, well, it depends. A team that was struggling needs the bye week. It resets them. A team that was red hot doesn't need the bye week. I remember your Philadelphia Eagles got it years ago after a 3-0 start. You remember that? They had the week 4 bye a couple seasons ago, and it cooled them off. So I think the Mets actually maybe a trip overseas, the player sent, all that stuff was a catalyst to spark them. It sure appears to be, and this is a long 162-game season, double any other sport. You have to look at current form. You have to look at momentum. The Mets are perfect 6-0 straight up. They came back from that trip, by the way, in London. They lost the first game, which is understandable, at home against Miami, getting back from overseas. And then the very next night, after just 2 runs on 4 hits, they put up 10 runs on 14 hits, and they've won 6 straight. That's the buy sign for me. With that said, though, I do think Texas will have some value at some point. They're the defending world champs, and they're off to a very subpar 33-39 record. But they've lost 4 straight, 5 of the last 7. So the Mets would be my preferred side here. It almost seems a little too obvious, and that's what kept me off this game.
Now, I'm wondering for you, EP, in this one, Severino and Lorenzen, kind of an intriguing pitching matchup. We got Johnny Jumpman saying with these two guys up there, he's maybe looking towards the under in this game. Also thinks they get off to a start. The chat's buzzing about playing some Nerfies. We'll talk some no-run first inning bets here coming up in a few, but would this be a candidate for you? I mean, with how the Mets are hitting right now, I don't know if I want to pick an inning where they might not get one across. What are you thinking, EP?
Yeah, so Severino is not a strikeout pitcher. That's something I look to a ton when I'm looking at Nerfies, as somebody who strikes out a lot of batters, doesn't walk a lot of batters, because obviously that leads to less traffic on the base pass. But Severino is a good ground ball pitcher, so it does let up a single to Marcus Semien. You get to side up Corey Seager for a ground ball double play. But the one thing I will say is, so currently my numbers point to the Mets that first 5 and money line in this game, but you can't ignore the fact that these guys are all professional athletes. Like, if you think the Texas Rangers are sitting at home right now preparing for this game, not pissed off the fact that they had a position player going last night in their home ballpark against the Mets, and that they're going to not try to have some more fire in their bellies in this matchup. I don't know how you quantify that into adding it to your numbers, but that's enough to make me want to stay away, because while I do like the Mets, as they're rolling, they're hitting, Severino's pitched well, Lorenzen is susceptible to getting hit. If these guys are professional athletes and they have pride too, like, I know for a fact that it's reminiscent of when the A's absolutely destroyed the Marlins earlier this season. Next game, come back, the A's are favorites again. The Marlins, what do, they absolutely stomp them in that next matchup. Texas Rangers are a team, of course, that still has a very good team. Dealt with some injuries, to Josh Jung. Wyatt Langford was out. Corey Seager's still been hurt. Adolis Garcia hasn't gotten hot yet. But this is still a good baseball team, top to bottom, and their pitching staff has actually been their catalyst for this team, which wasn't expected, but has been important. So I'm going to lay off. I'm going to say, before you just hammer the Mets being all over them, I understand why, but you can't forget that angle of, just like the pride angle here. Because whenever you get destroyed at home and have a position player go against you, these are professional athletes. So they're going to want to come back and come back strong to that.
Yeah, it makes a hell of a lot of sense to me. Hop below in the comments. Some folks asking about these nerfy plays. We'll talk about that now. Robert S. makes a really good point, and that's this heat wave that's rolling through that East Coast. If you're playing any nerfies in open stadiums on the East Coast, it might be a dicey proposition. I mean, it's not always a guarantee that balls are going to be flying, but when you have hitting teams and you have conditions fitting up nicely, especially when you got the heat and winds out, that's a recipe that is definitely a scratch, maybe some nerfies or unders off the card, instead of saying, oh wow, this number is really advantageous. Might be advantageous for a reason. Shout out there to Robert S. And also Tyler. Lady's birthday today. Thanks for joining us. Slacking off on the clock. I know you have a big duck dinner planned here for tonight, so I know you got to get to work. And you also mentioned that you got a meeting you got to get to. Well, guess what, folks? Good news. If you have meetings later in the day, you're going to be able to join us here earlier on First Pitch, right around the clock, with NHL winding down. Obviously, NBA Finals just wrapped up. Stay tuned for a big announcement. We're going to be moving into that 11 a.m. spot. So when you got day game baseball, we can still answer your questions right along the way here, leading you in to Wager Talk today, whether it's a Prez free zone or not. Sorry that we have to be your lead-in if he is back, but 11 a.m. First Pitch. We're going to be getting you some action early in the day. So keep your eyes peeled for when we're going to be announcing the switch, but set your clocks, set your alarms, because we will be joining you early in the day for early game action and getting your questions. We can respond to you in the comments all day long, and we are excited about it. And Derry, it's the girlfriend's birthday, not Tyler's birthday, but always Tyler, happy birthday to you as well, my friend. EP, I'm going to throw it back your way because the chat is just blowing up. They need a no run in the first inning. Initially, the game that I had circled was Tanner Houck versus Chris Bassett in that Toronto game, mainly because the part of the equation is Toronto. They have been an absolute wagon in cashing nerfies. I think it's 12-3 in their last 15 that they have not hit a run in the first inning. The worry for me is that this Boston team kind of a wagon right now, EP. So that was the game that I had circled that I crossed off. I think the weather worries me a little bit. So finding a nerfy on today's slate, a little bit tougher than it usually is for me. What do you think?
Yeah, well, shameless plug right now. Every single morning on WagerTalk news sites, not the free page, but WagerTalk.com, click on news, go on professional MLB baseball. We do a best nerfy pick article from the Gold Sheet, currently on a 13-2 run in our 58-32 over 90 bets this season on the nerfy. So I have the two picks that I put. You can read the article if you want a bigger, deeper dive into them. But first things first, Giants Cubs. Understand the wind should be blowing out at Wrigley, but we saw these two teams explode late in the game. Got Justin Steele going against Logan Webb, both ground ball pitchers, both pitchers who have good metrics against each other's lineup, and both offenses who aren't too great in the first inning. So nerfy number one would be Giants at Cubs. And number two, Mariners and Guardians. Now, the Mariners have seen McKenzie pretty well. They have a good expected weighted on-base average against him. However, the Guardians, of course, they have been a good team, but they're going against Bryce Miller, who they've never seen before, who is a very good young pitcher. And McKenzie throws a lot of that junk, those curveballs, those slower fastballs that could throw off the Seattle Mariners bats. So those are the two games that we have circled for nerfies today. Again, WagerTalk.com. Click the news button on the top. Major League Baseball, free nerfy picks every single day, and we're riding 13-2. So those are the two nerfies for today.
I love it. 13-2. You don't have to tell me twice. I'm gonna click my ass on that page myself, and I get the access there. So I love that. Check out EP as well on Twitter at Slime Action. Always posting great potential parlay slips for you as well over there. Steve, I don't know. I mean, I know that Ralph's kind of become our secret nerfy guy. Now we know we can turn to EP as well. At Cal Sports LV does the first inning report, and he says that St. Louis 8 straight on the no-run first inning, Cubs 7 straight. Any thoughts here on the wager that is no runs first innings? And coming up next, we're going to talk some Milwaukee Brewers for my man DC Capper, but just wanted to get your thoughts before we roll on to the next game.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I really don't look much of those streaks for it. I think you could probably make a case that, it doesn't go much more longer than that. And I know Ralph follows it, but I really think the nerfy is all about, you got to get through the heart of the order for the most part. It's going to the 3 or 4 strongest hitters of the lineup you're going to face initially. So I really think it's important to look how the starting pitcher has fared against those guys during his career. And once again, usually that's a very small sample if we even have a sample. And as Eric said earlier, everybody plays each other now. So we have a lot of pitchers and hitters that don't have a huge subset, a sample set, from past years. But I really think the nerfy doesn't necessarily run from one game to the next, although I do believe in offensive momentum. And I talked about the Mets being red hot, hitting the ball and things like that. So I think you probably want to start with a cold offensive team, and then you want to look at that starting pitching matchup against the current lineup. And that would be kind of my short list for possible nerfy suspects. And then vice versa for the Yerfy would be, teams that are in good current form like the Mets right now that are hitting the ball well, and then see how they match up against the opposing starter.
Yeah, and the absolute lock is if you're going to the ballpark, I feel like it's just customary to bet a yes run first inning. You know what I mean? Like no handicap need. It's just like 100%. I'm going to the ballpark before I even sit my ass down with a hot dog. Like I want to see a run come across. So
it's like the don't pass line, the craps table, right? You can't do it.
Exactly.
You're that guy. Teddy Covers, don't be that guy.
That's a Teddy Covers special. The only bet that he makes is the no pass line. It's so true. So true. Speaking of Teddy Covers, you can catch him live here at 12 Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. That's Wager Talk today. If you haven't checked it out, hit that subscribe button and hit the little bell. You'll be notified when we go live here. But my man, DC Capper, he was asking about Milwaukee. Also, shout out to D, the boy. No, that's not my burner, even though I am Dan, the boy, as well. He's saying good energy in this MF today. Let's get it. That's right. We always got good vibes right here, D, the boy. That's why the like button's always getting smashed. That's for sure. Angels and Brewers, I'm going to throw back your way, EP, in this one. Angels got the job done last night, and the one thing that I know the chat loves is after the Brewers lose, they love coming in and saying, Brew Crew bounce back, question mark. So, EP, Brew Crew bounce back? What do you think?
Yeah, well, this one actually is going to be my best bet, so I'll just drop it on you right now. I had the Brewers last night. Obviously, they took that loss, came up early. But this is a much different scenario. Now, Griffin Canning has been one of the worst starting pitchers in baseball. I'll say it again. He's in that Bailey Falter category, where if you want to take a look and understand more about Griffin Canning, moral of the story is he stinks. 5.71 xFIP, 4.99 expected ERA, 4.95 Sierra. Does not strike out hitters. Walks a crap ton of batters as well. Lets up just poor contact, decent ground ball rate, but he's letting up fly balls and fly balls and fly balls. So his fly balls are pretty much turning into dingers. But so is Tobias Myers as well. Now, he has good away splits. A guy this young, I'm not going to buy into, his splits being, that great. His metrics, his advanced metrics are not as good also. 4.61 expected ERA, 4.18 Sierra. Again, a guy who walks a lot of batters, doesn't get a lot of swinging strikes or whiffs whatsoever. So there is a lot of contact. And the one thing we've seen from this team is that, they can hit. They have young guys who, every team in baseball is susceptible for going cold, but they like to string together some at-bats and play. So my best bet, which I'll get to just early while I'm here, is first 5 innings, over 4.5 runs between these two teams. I expect the Brewers, a Brew Crew bounce back, so I expect them to be able to get to Canning, as I just mentioned, those absolutely horrific numbers. And Tobias Myers, I do like his outlook, all things considered. I do think the Angels really want to manufacture 1-2, while the Brewers do the heavy lifting in the first 5 innings of this game. So 145 is probably a fair price for Milwaukee, but I'm more focused in on these first 5 innings, having a little bit of a slugfest early in Anaheim.
Yeah, and Rich Lockhart, appreciate you in the chat as well, mentioning this is probably the game on the slate that you definitely want to keep checking back on any weather updates, because right around first pitch looks like there's going to be quite a band coming through that could linger. So, maybe not as much of a window as they had initially hoped. So a delay, maybe postponed, definitely on the table. But if the game goes and weather somehow cooperates, maybe gets pushed a little bit south or something, then the over, the 4.5 in the first 5, the look in the bounce back spot for the Brew Crew there. Really only other 2 games you probably got to keep an eye on is the LA Dodgers and the Colorado Rockies. A little bit of rain in the forecast I'm seeing in that one. And then Seattle and Cleveland, scattered showers, but it looks like a window should be good to go there. Steve, before we rock on to another game, and you do have a best bet coming up, Royals and Athletics. Probably not going to get a question about the Royals and the A's, but Steve will break it down for you in best bets. Anything else you have to add on that game? Obviously, if it goes, could be a potential a target for some runs early in that one, Milwaukee and Los Angeles. Any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I've been seeing things well. 7-0 run the last 5 days, 13-3 team best bets, but I see well in the free plays also. And of course, I put a free play up every day at WagerTalk. I do a lot of videos, and I mentioned that because I did a standalone video last night for this game. And a lot of times when you see an inferior team as a slight favorite, that should be an indication it should make your short list. And we saw that with the Angels last night. They were minus 105 at home, even though the Brewers are leading their division, much better record, better bullpen, better offensive numbers. But if you look at current form, the Angels are playing their best baseball of the season. They've been a winning team the last couple of weeks, and we often see that with really bad teams. They go on these little mini runs. So I'd be careful fading the Angels right now until we see them cool off. They've won 3 of their last 4. They've won 4 of their last 6. And I think their offense has been hitting the ball about as good as we've seen. They're all starting to get a little healthy. Keep an eye on the next few weeks. You're going to get more guys to the lineup here. So no opinion on this game tonight because, as you said, the weather. Also, the Angels' bullpen is really bad. I'm not big on the starter. But once again, the Angels have been a profitable team the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, sneaky indeed have been the Angels. It's kind of been, they've been like that parlay buster is over these last few weeks. It doesn't mean, hey, take it to the bank or anything. It just maybe means take a little bit of pause. But again, that game, we'll keep an eye on the weather if we see any announcements before we shut down here today. But not go until 9:38 Eastern time. Plenty of time to hopefully have it work itself out of the system. But that's definitely the one to put a pin in and say you might be looking at a postponement EP, I'm wondering for you, the chat is always asking about some of these promos that's going on those regulated sports books. That's how they get their names on out there. A lot of people have been complaining that the up by 2 promo, RIP to it, because everyone's got limited out the ass, that it almost made it unbettable for sure. But one that's still fun, and especially on a hot day like today on the East Coast, Dinger Tuesday, where you get some action on some home run hitters. Any names that stood out to you as you were running down the board? Because I know that's one that you love sprinkling on, a little bankroll builder.
Yeah, so I will also just remind everybody too. So Dinger Tuesday was created by FanDuel, I think 2 or 3 seasons ago. But now also Caesars and DraftKings are doing odds boosts on home runs on Tuesdays also. So they don't have the same thing where FanDuel is, if you don't know, you bet $25 player in a game and you get $5 of bonus bets back up to the $25 if for every home run hit in that game. So that's a great promo to use. But on DraftKings and Caesars, they also do now profit boosts on singular players. So that's why you got to have a lot of outs if you want to be successful in this industry. But we mentioned the first game. I like the potential home runs in the San Diego Phillies game. 2 pitchers that allow a ton of home runs. You could look at basically Kyle Schwarber and Bryce Harper. Those are 2 guys who I like to go yard off Michael King and Fernando Tatis from the Padres side. Another matchup, Dodgers-Rockies. Of course, Coors Field is always going to be a good target. The 2 guys that I like on the Dodgers side are Will Smith and Freddie Freeman. Both Will Smith destroys lefties. Freddie Freeman, good history of Austin Gomber. And Charlie Blackmon I like for the Colorado Rockies in that one. And then the final game I would target would actually be the Seattle Mariners-Cleveland Guardians game. A Guardians team, they love to hit at home, and there are a lot of home runs hit. Bryce Miller susceptible to the home run. Tristan McKenzie actually leads the league in home runs allowed. And a couple of batters I would look at Julio Rodriguez, who's been hot, to continue hitting the ball well. And I like Luke Raley as well for a home run if you're looking to bet on a Dinger Tuesday. So those are 3 games, the Padres-Phillies, the Guardians, Mariners, and the Rockies, Dodgers, I would look at with great odds of hitting a home run bet. And then if you don't hit it, recouping that money and getting those bonus bets back.
I'll tell you what, I'm glad that you mentioned that Cleveland game, because I was just going to bring that up and throw towards Steve, and I obviously get your thoughts there on some potential runs that you see in that one. Scott Chaffee over on the YouTube Shorts feed, we appreciate you presumably joining on the smartphone or device. We appreciate you doing that. He asked Steve, should I hammer the Guardians? Double fist. I don't know if he's going overhand, if it's one hand, or if it's one of those sledgehammers, Gallagher to the watermelon, but he's looking to hammer the Guardians in this one. Talk about sneaky hot teams, though. Seattle, I mean, they're fresh off their 3rd series sweep of the season, again, against that Rangers team that's really struggling to find their footing. But, they're starting off, I think, what is it, a 9-game road trip, and it all starts with the 3-game set here, opening up in Cleveland. I don't know if I would be hammering against Seattle with their current form. What do you think in this one?
See, now I'm questioning if you're as young as I thought you were, because you did a Gallagher reference, which is fantastic.
Strong.
Gallagher actually has a great baseball bit from the 1980s. He said that the pitching mound, instead of being raised, should be a hole, and that the pitcher just randomly pops up and throws the ball. The hitter doesn't know when it's coming, and you should be allowed to carry your bat with you around the base paths. And you should also be able to go to random bases. You don't always just run to first. You keep them guessing. Gallagher baseball reference there. I love that. The watermelon, of course, is what made him famous. As far as the Mariners, my concern here is that they had the day off after the long homestand. Like you said, red hot, 7-1 straight up their last 8, and now they're traveling. So on the surface, maybe it's a little bit of a momentum breaker. And also, I know they don't have a hitter-friendly park. The numbers show that. But despite winning 5 of those last 6 home games, they had 8 hits or less in every one of them. So it does look like maybe they're cooling off, and I'm wondering if this road trip might be the start of it.
Yeah, it definitely could be. And I know my man Scott, if the bet is in already, he's hoping that it definitely is here out of the game. Tristan McKenzie going to be on the mound there. Not a terrible price if you want to fade him. It was just one that didn't quite jump off the board to me in that one. Steve, what is a play that jumped off the board at you? Because when you're running down, some nice matchups here on the board, I don't know if the Royals and the A's would quite be the game that said, oh man, I really want to find a play in this one. Two teams that recently kind of been clunking along, especially more pronounced, not even clunking along, just completely falling out. For the A's, looking like the team we expected. This is the late night true DGen special. Steve, what do you have up over at WagerTalk, and how are we betting this hell of a matchup?
Yeah, we're going to look at a free play on the late card here in just a moment, but I do have a bonus free play on one of the earlier games tonight on my page for everybody. Check out the free plays. They do quite well, but what really does well are my personal best bets, and we finished the NBA season with a bang last night. Number one ranked all year in units won, number one all-time sides totals units won in the NBA, the history of WagerTalk. I started off the series with my strongest play of the season on the Celtics, and we finished it with a strong play on the Celtics to cash easily last night. And yes, I know the NBA's done, so why we talk about that? Well, I also had two baseball best bets last night, and they both won as well. So it was a perfect 3-0 sweep last night. 7 straight winners now. The past 5 days, a perfect 7-0. And over the last 16 plays, 13-3 all sports. And almost all of those were baseball, except for a couple NBA plays mixed in, of course. So my point is, yes, the NBA season ended last night. It's officially summertime for myself, Steve Merril, but that doesn't mean you can't still make some money the next couple months with football around the corner. So check out my baseball best bets. And oh, by the way, you can get tonight and the rest of June, the next 13 days for free when you sign up for July. It's that simple. Sign up for July and you get the rest of June for free. You missed a 3-0 sweep last night when I mentioned that promo. Don't wait any longer because I've got a strong MLB over-under best bet tonight for Tuesday. You can get it right now, Steve Merril, WagerTalk.com, and a bonus free play in the National League. Go look at a free American League play here for the show. And we don't always play on teams. Sometimes we just play against teams. And the A's are always on my short list as a team to play against. Got off to a surprisingly decent start by their standards. And I mean decent because this team was a couple weeks ago 26-39, but they've now lost 9 straight. They're who we thought they were, as Dennis Green would say. And they're a play against team whenever possible. And the Royals are struggling right now. Royals got off to a very strong start this season. A little bit of that was fool's gold. They've lost 6 of 8, but I think this is the perfect spot for them to get back on track. Both teams had yesterday off. Jeff Michaels and I talked about this last year. The best spot to fade a team off an extended road trip is when they're a home dog off 1 day's rest, which means they got home, had the day off, and then have to play. They're the inferior team. The Royals would not overlook them tonight after struggling against the Yankees and Dodgers. Wow, let's talk about taking a step down in class. I like Kansas City here. It's a great situational setup, and the price is very fair at minus $1.25. Now it's $1.30 in a lot of spots, so it looks like it's going higher. Either way, though, the Kansas City Royals are worth a look tonight at 9:40 Eastern.
Kansas City Royals, the best bet there for our man Steve Merril. And yes, just because it is summer and hockey winding down and NBA finishes up, that doesn't mean you can't join us and be cashing all along the way. Our man Yogesh Telunagi, I hope I pronounced that. I feel like I nailed that actually over on the YouTube Shorts feed. I think he clicked and is just hopping on in here for the baseball show to hear about Portugal and the Czech Republic. He's asking, should I bet on Portugal win? What you say? All I can tell you is I have been enjoying a little Euro action. I laid the goal with Portugal. So you come to the baseball show, you never know what sport you may be hearing, but that's the way that I bet it, Yogesh. But, hey, take it to the bank. We're on the baseball show here. So maybe you don't want to take a look at that. The Gallagher. That was well done out of you, Joe. I was looking over at my screen to check out the odds because I'm not throwing Portugal minus 205 in any parlays. The price doesn't make sense. But there it is. Timely references is what we do here. I brought up the Gallagher
5% of the viewers who even know who Gallagher is, including Eric Pauly.
Well, now they know. Now they know.
He doesn't know.
Now they know.
I just never realized that Dan Alexander was a 45-year-old man. I just did not realize that until you did a Gallagher reference. I'm impressed now.
My hair if I lose a little bit up top here, guys, I'm basically Gallagher.
Gallagher was the original Carrot Top from the 1980s.
I'm one or two, like hair pulling out bets away from being Gallagher. Everyone's saying that I'm Q. I may be Gallagher in the future if I lose a little bit here on the top. We already did talk Brewers there, Mike Ferrero. Thanks for joining us here, hopping in. Brewers money line against the Angels tonight. We talked about how the Angels had kind of been a little bit sneaky. The chat loves Milwaukee. to bounce back. But that was one, especially with the weather, that we were a little bit concerned with. But EP in that one, best bet was actually going first 5 over the 4.5. So not many thoughts on the side for you there, Mikey. But EP, my man Eric Pauly, looking towards the over in that one. We also had our man Have Cash wanting to hear about his West Coast team that is in the Midwest, or I guess, a little bit outside of it. But Chicago Cubs, San Francisco, it's Webb, it's Steele in that one. I personally didn't have anything that stood out to me. He was looking towards maybe back in the San Francisco side of the equation. San Francisco and Chicago, EP, anything stand out to you? Last night was a tight game, an over game. You think today would be similar, tight, over? How are you playing that one?
Yeah, so first thing was the Nerfy that I brought up. Love a Nerfy in this game with Webb and Steele, both good histories against each other. The one thing that I did outline is, so weather is blowing out. The wind is blowing out in Wrigley, so that obviously leads to runs, and we saw that happen later in the game last night. And I think this could be a situation where maybe you don't bet this game pre-game and you try to get in live, assuming that Logan Webb and Justin Steele do what they do best, which is induce ground balls. So in a game where you finally get to the bullpen with these two teams, and you got guys who can lift the ball in the air. Now I know Logan Webb loves to go deep into games, so how much bullpen of the Giants will we get? That's to be determined. But the Cubs have an offense or a team that likes to lift the ball in the air and put the ball in the air. So how are they going to fare against a pitcher who is a ground ball pitcher? Now, we saw them not fare well last night, as they did the same thing against Jordan Hicks, who was a ground ball pitcher. Even going back to about a series or two ago when they faced the Tampa Bay Rays, they faced Taj Bradley, who is a fly ball pitcher, and they could only get 2 runs on 3 consecutive bunts. So the wind is blowing out, which always makes you a little bit weary, but because of the pitch mixes of these guys inducing those ground balls, I'd wait to look and maybe bet live on this total because I don't want to fade the wind in Chicago. We got ground ball pitchers going today, so I'm not sure how many lifted balls we're going to get. And it's going to be tough to get to that line without some deep flies in Italy.
Steve, in this one, the thing that stands out to me is lefty Justin Steele here for the Cubs. 1 run or no run in at least 5 innings in his last 4 outings, and he has 0 wins to show for it. I mean, he's had some piss poor outings as well, don't get me wrong, but what does this guy have to do to deserve a win? Any thoughts for you in this one?
Well, I think it just goes back to what you're saying. I mean, you guys are saying the Cubs offense is struggling this season. And once again, everyone focuses on starting pitchers. The odds makers heavily dependent, on starting pitching. The odds are set that way. But you look at the Cubs, they had gone under 9 straight until that over yesterday, that 6-7 loss. 10 hits, maybe they're starting to break out. The Giants offense has been in very good current form, though. This is a team with double-digit hits, 9 hits or more in 5 straight, double-digit hits in 4 of those 5. So if maybe that was the buy side with the offense, yes, but it's 9.5. 9 is such a key number, and I get it. The wind's blowing out. That's why the total is high. It tells you all you need to know. But once again, 9 is such a key number. I just can't get there with the over yet. But I do think at some point we're going to get some value with the Cubs overs, but I need to see more first to pull the trigger.
That's Steve Merril, WT.buzz/SM. Quickest way to check him out on his page. Big thanks to him and Eric Pauly joining us here today. Big thanks to the chat, C. James, DC, Capper, Leg Show Magazine, Kristen Leal over on the YouTube Shorts feed. Appreciate you as well. BJ, hopping in here late. You can scroll back to the beginning there. Orioles, Yankees, Boston, Blue Jays. Kristen Leal looking at the Reds, Cardinals, Nationals, the Red Sox as well. All games that we touched upon here, Kristen. So appreciate you joining us. Scroll on back and check out those breakdowns on the full game. Nats today, too. We didn't touch that one, so I got you, Kristen, because I got Steve on the screen with me right here. And Steve, these are your Washington Nationals. You talked about that a little bit on Wager Talk today. They are once again your Washington Nationals since they're actually doing something. They're flirting around with that 500 mark. It's Irvin and Saccone on the mound. Don't worry, Kristen. Even when you're joining us late here, we got you covered. How are you looking to bet this one, Steve?
Yeah, and she can go back and replay the Wager Talk Today episode, like you said, because we did break this game down also in depth there. But one thing I'll point out is, first of all, they've won 8 of their last 9. But as I said on Wager Talk, they're the most profitable team this year in the National League. They're plus 14 units against the money line. The 3rd most profitable team in baseball after the Guardians and the Yankees. So once again, the market is not pricing the Nationals correctly. And if you just look at the metrics and the hot streak here, you normally would not see them as only $1.20, $1.30 favorites. So they will cool off at some point, but this is the opposite of a falling knife. They're a speeding bullet right now, and they remain an underrated team as proof that the most profitable team in baseball in the National League this year.
Any final thoughts for you on that one, EP? The D-backs and the Washington Nationals. Some good stats there. Ciccone on the mound again for Arizona. Any thoughts on the way out here for this one?
My only thoughts are this. I have 2 units on Nationals over 66.5 wins. They have 35 wins, and it's June 18th. If they don't cash me to this window, let's go Nationals. That's all I have to say. Let's go Nationals.
That's a good way to say it. The best bet on this game is one I made before the season ever even started. Let's get this money for the Nats. That's a live ticket though, sitting at 35 wins, man. That is a live ticket. Although that's famous last words. Yeah. So I'll knock on wood for you. I won't jinx you. I won't bring it up anymore. Tyler in the chat already playing hooky from his work. He said easiest work meeting of my life. Dan, LOL. I'm already back. Well, welcome back, Tyler. Just in time for us to shut it down here for the day. Kiera Grant asking what our thoughts are on Astros and White Sox. So Tyler, at least you get one more game following your work breakdown there. Framber Valdez on the mound, lefty against Cannon. I mean, 194. If Trigger was on the show, he would say take the 1.5 here at the even money with the White Sox. I don't know. Astros finally putting a little bit of a streak here together. 3 of their past 4 series, opening up against what should be a slam dunk series. But EP, sometimes when you got these slam dunk series, these big prices in baseball, sometimes it's a little too easy. This one does feel like it's Astros or pass for me. Like, you're not going to tell us to bet the White Sox. You're not going to tell Kiera to bet the White Sox here, are you, EP?
Framber Valdez over 5.5 strikeouts. I know he's been very poor in the strikeout department so far this season. I know his whiffs aren't up there, his chases are not there, but the White Sox have a 25% K rate against left-handed pitching over their last 14 games, and some of their other metrics of 13.9% swinging strike rate, 34.1% chase rate against lefties. I like Framber Valdez to finally look like the Framber Valdez we know and love.
Yeah, and Steve, we think Framber's gonna be going a little bit deeper here. I mean, you can take that almost 2 bills on them to win the game, and if we get some quality outing and the bullpen backs him up, Framber Valdez to record the win, only -120. Make it make sense. Do you think we could be seeing him returning to form as this Houston Astros team themselves as a whole are returning to form here a little bit, or? You split this in half, make it a run, 1.5 money line. What do you think in this one, Steve? Or is this a cross it off at that price?
Yeah, first of all, Eric, the Nationals only have to win 35% of their games the rest of the way. Their next 91 games only have to win 35%. So I definitely like that live ticket, to say the least. And speaking of 35%, I'm going to segue into this game with that transition, is that I talk about how your Phillies aren't going to win 70%, Dan. Well, the White Sox have won 26% of their games this season. Almost every team is going to win 35 to 40% of their games. So the White Sox at some point are going to go on a run. And we saw this earlier this year. They started 3-22. And then over the next 2 weeks after that, they were the most profitable team in baseball. And then they lost 14 straight. Now, I don't know if they're turning the corner or not, but they've gone 2-2 their last 4. They've had 23 hits and 14 runs their last 2 games. So it looks like maybe they're starting to heat up again. That makes me concerned. That's why I stayed off this game. But I do like where Eric is going with Valdez props, because he is coming off a bad outing against San Francisco in his last start last week. 5 runs, 8 hits, and 4 innings. Oh, by the way, right before that, he had a 9-inning complete game with 1 run allowed. He can go deep as anybody in baseball, and he's a Class A pitcher. Always like to back these guys off bad outings. Maybe the White Sox are heating up. We might not see it tonight, but keep an eye on them over the next few games. I like Valdez props over, maybe recorded outs over. We haven't talked about that today. Only had 1 strikeout in that last game, but he had 8 before that. But he's had 4 or less now in 4 of his last 5 games. So I'd be careful with the strikeout prop, but I like his innings or outs or however you want to play that to go high, because I think he'll have a long outing tonight.
Yeah, and Cannon's a little bit of a sneaky part of this handicap simply because he's a guy who's bouncing around AAA and here with the majors. He did have a pretty damn solid outing last week where he was pitching 7 innings, 1 run, 4 hit ball, 1 walk, 7 strikeouts. So again, it's a different level of competition that he'll be seeing, but interesting little thing to put a tab in that you're going to be seeing Cannon, who's bouncing back up and down. He has seen some action here in the majors, but definitely maybe an interesting part of the handicap to work in. And Robert asks, yes, you're right. We've just got both of these guys' thoughts on the game. Trigger would still be breaking down one side of the pitching matchup. It's the gift that always keeps on giving. Tyler saying,
I don't even know how to spell dissertation. I assume that's
I don't know
correctly. That's impressive. Gallagher couldn't spell it either.
I don't know if he spelled it right or not, but Tyler said I rewound and saw some sort of watermelon mustache. I'm not sure what that one was. Just always trusting Gallagher. It'll be the new thing. If anybody hops in the chat and says we're hammering a play, call it the Gallagher play of the day. And now we got
Joe Ranieri thinks that I look like Gallagher because it said Steve Merril, so I don't think it was you. I think it's me. I think I'm.
I think it's just the easy. You got to grow a mustache. Steve would look strong with a mustache. You got a strong, trustable face.
You should know who Gallagher are. You should not know who Gallagher is. I'm actually offended that you knew this, Dan.
Steve, I am saying though, like it's. I mean, because you do a good job keeping it cleaned up. You mean like I was in like private school my whole life, so like I just let it rock. The second that I graduated and I was allowed to have a beard,
I find out more about Dan the Man Alexander every episode here. He's in his mid-40s.
When we start approaching an hour, Steve, when we start approaching an hour, you never know what you're going to get here on First Pitch. But I will tell you, folks who are chiming in and joining us here for the first time, and we'll touch on that here in just a second about that Royals money line. It was something that Steve talked about. So I don't think that you're a madman, because Steve said he might not be hammering the Royals money line, but that's a play that he has in his pocket. It's actually the best bet on the card for him. But if you're joining us here for the first time, number one, we appreciate you. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Loving the chat room. Absolutely buzzing. You're going to get buzzing even earlier in the day. That's right. We're moving to 11 a.m. so we can get you some day game action on those Thursdays with those short cards. And we can also get your questions answered earlier. Build those bankrolls, answering questions throughout the day in the comments as well. So keep tuned for the announcement of when we will officially be moving to that 11 a.m. spot. But if Joe Ranieri's Florida Panthers can get the job done, it'll likely be sooner rather than later, shifting right on in to our puck time spot there. But definitely stay tuned, because we appreciate the people who are joining us live. So don't want you showing up at 2 p.m. saying, where the hell are we live? We already went at 11 a.m. and we'll be getting you winners. And if you are joining us at 2, hop below in the comments and we'll be answering them along the way through the evening as well. Big shout out, Ken Curry, Johnny Jumpman, D, that boy, Kiera Grant, new name in there. We appreciate you. Kristen Leal, Invisible Ninja. Take that hammer and hammer away. Just warn any watermelons who are in the vicinity.
Invisible Ninja.
Big. I don't know how I saw the comment
in the chat.
That's what I mean. You can't see me. It might be John Cena's burner. We don't know. Chris Fisher, DC Capper, all of you, we appreciate you, and of course, you appreciate Steve and Eric here. If you do, give them a like and check them on out over at WagerTalk.com. Wednesday is going to be a half-off special. You can grab daily packages for half price tomorrow, and that is a terrific deal. That is going to do it for us, but hey, if you're joining us here on the rewatch, click the video on your screen or check out the links in the description below to keep getting all that info you need to cash on all the sports you love. It's what we do here around the clock at WagerTalk TV. Best of luck to everyone. We'll see you next time right here on First Pitch.